All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a story that absolutely redefines what it means to make a lucky find. We're talking about the accidental discovery of what is literally the most important machine in human history. And the craziest part? It wasn't found in some billion-dollar top-secret government lab. No way. It was found on a Saturday morning at a weekend garage sale.
I want you to imagine a number for a second. $200. Just picture walking up a suburban driveway, handing over two crisp $100 bills, and completely unknowingly buying the literal key to the universe. Well, that's exactly what a hobbyist named Bill Evans did. He was just looking for some scrap, maybe some vintage parts to tinker with in his spare time. He threw out a lowball offer for this massive pile of dusty equipment, and for just $200, he walked away with a machine that would absolutely shatter everything we know about the cosmos.
So we've got a pretty stark contrast between our two main guys here. On one hand, there's Bill Evans. Now, Bill's a self-proclaimed junk collector. He loves old antique radios, dusty oscilloscopes, scouring the classifieds for old gear just to strip it for copper and tubes. On the other hand, you have the original architect of the machine, the late Professor Russell Henderson. Professor Henderson was an MIT-educated genius, a brilliant electronic engineer who actually spent his twilight years custom building a highly advanced radio telescope. And honestly, this tragic mismatch in their technical understanding, that's really the beating heart of our story today. So where did these two totally different worlds collide? Right at 141 Spinnaker Drive. This was a really wealthy custom-built cedar and glass home in a nice neighborhood near Port Kenmore. Bill drove out there after spotting an ad in the local paper. When he shows up, he meets the professor's daughter, Maggie, and her husband. And get this, they had absolutely no idea what her late father's equipment actually did. To them, it was literally just a dusty eyesore. So Bill opens up the garage and finds this massive array of consoles, boxes of MIT manuals, a meticulous logbook, and, right out there in the yard, a towering 4-segment spiraling satellite dish. Over the next 3 days, Bill basically transforms his own 2-car garage into a makeshift observatory. First, he breaks down that massive 4-segment dish just to fit it in his pickup truck. Then he spends these late evenings poring over Professor Henderson's insanely complex technical manuals and personal notebooks. He meticulously routes this giant, intricate maze of coaxial and fiber optic cables, making sure they match perfectly to their proper terminals. And honestly, for a guy who's mostly used to just stripping copper, this was a seriously impressive piece of reverse engineering. Okay, so now it's the moment of truth. Bill reaches out, and he flips the heavy master power switch. Instantly, across all these stacked consoles, a dozen red and amber indicator lights flicker to life. A low electrical hum starts resonating through the garage, and it steadily deepens into this powerful, rhythmic thrum. 2 old CRT video monitors hiss, they flash, and finally they stabilize. And right there on the glass, a clean digital title page pops up. Radio telescope interface, system boot. But after spending like an hour twisting knobs and tweaking 5 separate tuning devices with absolutely zero luck, Bill gives up. Well, temporarily. He steps away for a quick 15-minute tea break, feeling a little defeated. But when he comes back, everything has changed. The main monitor has cleared out. The white noise coming from the speakers shifts into this rhythmic, almost mathematical pulse. A clean green prompt appears. System active. Link established. Real-time, deep space astronomical coordinates start cascading down the margins, followed by this bizarre parade of dancing alien geometric symbols. Completely unsure of what to do next, Bill reaches for the keyboard and just types out the very first standard test prompt that pops into his head. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Suddenly, the monitor flashes violently. A whole paragraph of alien text generates, and then, right beneath it, the screen echoes his exact phrase back to him in perfect English. Bill is just absolutely elated. He lets out a breathless laugh, totally convinced he's managed to tap into some text-based terminal link with, just another earthly amateur hobbyist. So Bill playfully types back, telling whoever it is that their broadcast coordinates are totally impossible, basically accusing them of pulling a really funny joke. But then, the monitor pulses again. The entity on the other end completely ignores his banter and explicitly asks, "Is this Professor Henderson?" Bill just replies that, "Nope, he is just Bill Evans from Washington State and he bought the gear at a garage sale."
The response he gets back introduces some truly staggering science. The system tells Bill that Professor Henderson was actually never able to configure the cable array correctly to balance the tachyon feedback loop. But without even knowing it, by meticulously connecting all those cables exactly to the manuals over those 3 days, Bill Evans, the junk collector, had accidentally succeeded where the MIT genius failed. By balancing this loop, Bill had brought the whole system up to total operational efficiency. Wild, right? So here's the absolutely crucial part about what this machine actually achieved. The entity explains that Professor Henderson was the first human being to successfully design an instantaneous interstellar communication link. By breaching what they call the subspace barrier, this machine literally bypassed the speed of light. It allowed for zero latency, real-time, text-based chat all the way across the galaxy. We're talking about a monumental scientific breakthrough, just sitting quietly in a suburban two-car garage. But remember, Bill's a practical guy, and his skepticism is growing pretty rapidly. He demands their true coordinates. He types into the terminal, asking them to cut the games and stop ruining his experience with hoaxes. He is just utterly convinced at this point that this is some elaborate prank, probably orchestrated by a guy maybe 100 miles away using satellite relays to spoof the deep space telemetry data. Well, the terminal obliges, and it sends over a precise string of mathematical values. Determined to debunk this prank once and for all, Bill pulls out his smartphone. He plugs the exact astronomical coordinates right into a deep space star mapping database, and this is the gut punch moment. The results pop up and the breath just leaves his lungs. The coordinates map perfectly to a planetary body orbiting Alpha Centauri. That is more than 4 light-years away from Earth. Panic and denial instantly set in. Bill's hands are literally shaking, so he falls back on the only thing he knows for sure, the established laws of physics. He hammers out an angry response on his keyboard, telling them he looked up the coordinates. And because modern human technology dictates that a simple radio signal would take years just to travel that distance, let alone send a reply back, he knows for a fact this is a total fraud. He is just desperately trying to debunk the impossible. But the machine doesn't back down. The screen flashes a blinding green, and the extraterrestrial intelligence responds with this chilling, undeniable authority. They confirm his smartphone search. Yes, they are over 4 light-years away. And furthermore, they reveal they have been trying to transmit their congratulations to Professor Henderson for the last 2 Earth years. Desperate for any kind of loophole, Bill basically begs them for undeniable proof. But the alien response delivers a pretty haunting ultimatum. They state that they can only offer the mathematical truths of the cosmos. They send the signal, humanity has to verify it. The burden of belief belongs entirely to you, Bill Evans. They make it crystal clear. If his mind cannot accept the reality of what's happening, there's no foundation for further contact. Humanity has to take the mental leap.
I really want you to stop and put yourself in Bill's shoes for a second. What would you do? Seriously, you're sitting in your cluttered garage, surrounded by piles of junk you bought at a yard sale. Your smartphone is telling you a signal is coming from Alpha Centauri, and your computer screen is talking back to you instantly. Do you trust this impossible, reality-breaking data, or do you trust the comforting, established laws of physics that govern your everyday life?
While Bill makes his choice, the sheer vastness of the situation just overwhelms him with a deep wave of fear. He decides it absolutely has to be a trick, maybe some malicious software glitch left behind by a dead professor. Trembling, he types out his final, tragic transmission. If I can't understand it, I can't believe it, and if I don't believe it's real, there's no point in talking. He actively chooses to reject the reality unfolding right in front of him. The cursor just pulses on the screen like a fading heartbeat for a really long time. Finally, the extraterrestrial intelligence reaches a completely heartbreaking conclusion based on Bill's fear. They thank him for his honesty, noting that, perhaps mankind is simply not ready for this day. They actually admit they've always harbored deep anxieties about whether humanity possessed the maturity for interstellar contact, and Bill's reaction had just proven those exact fears right.
And then comes the final sign-off from the stars. We shall hold vigil for a mind ready for the future. But for now, the line is dead. The green text abruptly vanishes. The monitor goes completely black, defaulting to a meaningless television test pattern. A hollow, empty static fills the garage speakers. The connection is completely severed. The dramatic irony of this ending is honestly just staggering. Bill remains seated in the dim glow of his equipment, surrounded by all his little treasures. Outside, that giant satellite dish points silently toward the night sky, and Bill is just sitting there alone in the silence of his garage, feeling completely relieved that he didn't fall for some complex hoax. He is utterly unaware that he had just shut the door on tomorrow. The bridge to the stars was gone. all because he was too afraid to cross it. Which really brings us to our final takeaway for this explainer. Is mankind's greatest barrier to the cosmos simply our own inability to believe? Professor Henderson built the physical bridge, for sure, but it was the mental bridge that collapsed. It leaves us lingering on a really profound implication about first contact, doesn't it? Maybe the universe is already calling, and we're just simply too afraid to pick up the phone? Anyway, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.